वाहगुरु वाहगुरु जी हर हर जन दोई एक है बिव विचार कछ नाहे जल ते उपज तरंग ज्यों जल ही बिखै समाहे तू तू करता तू हुआ मुझ में रहा न हूँ जब आपा पर का मिट गया जत देखा तत तू वाहगुरु जी का खालसा वाहगुरु जी की फतेह. So I've been asked a couple of questions. You know, we've been talking about losing our ego, giving our head to Guru Sahib. So today we're going to be focusing our talk on Shri Guru Angad Dev Ji Maharaj, who is the person who actually said the quote of Jis pyare so neho tis aage mar chaliye. And what I'm going to be talking about is how when Guru Angad Dev Ji in the Rupa Bhai Lerna, when he met, how he met Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and how his kind of love story went with Guru Nanak Dev Ji all the way up to the point where he actually said the Pangati, Jis pyare so neho tis aage mar chaliye, right? This Pangati is actually the very first Pangati that Guru Angad Dev Ji said after he became Guru, right? The first Pangati, as soon as he became Guru. So one thing that somebody asked me a question, we've been talking about losing our egos, we've been talking about giving our head, but what is this ego thing you're talking about? Right? What is the ego? So how would you describe ego? Does anybody have a suggestion or like something that they want to add to the game? Because we'll make this a bit more interactive rather than me standing here talking for an hour and you guys are falling asleep again, right? So what is ego? Any idea? Yeah? No? Come on, it's the thing you're trying to lose, right? It's not weight, no? What? Any idea? Yeah? Sorry? Ignorance? Sure, yeah? Anything else? Pride, okay. Well, how would you describe it? These are just other names for ego. The pride is a name of ego, right? It's like a version of it, right? It's his cousin. But what is actually, how do you describe it? If I was to show you this is ego, like what would be there? Right? Like this is my friend ego right here, right? It'd be like this. It'd be me standing actually, but what's on the other side? What does egos look like? Yeah? No comment. Yeah. Whatever.
The thing that separates you from you and what makes you think you exist, I exist.
Right?
So it's that
It's
fine line between you and God. That's what makes you.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I was gonna say basically कि मैं सारा कुछ है, right? Like it's just me. Like ego is basically defined by yourself. I'm everything.
So like the Pankti that we just read before we started, is like we're like Jab apa par ka mit gaya, jad dekha tat tum. So in that Pankti, Maharaj is basically saying, tum karta tum hua. As I was saying, you, continuously I kept on meditating, you. Just like in the morning katha, we were talking about Japota Ika Nama, Avin Rafal Kama, all the things are false. The only way to actually whip the butter out is actually do the work, right? Do the whipping. And so tum karta tum hua, mujh mein raha na hu. Maharaj said, like as I was saying you, I forgot that I even existed. I became you. Tum karta tum hua. I became you. So I was saying you, and I became you. Jab apa parka mit gaya. Jab apa parka is actually when there's two things and you put a curtain in between, right? Both the things on each side are the exact same, but the only thing is stopping is a thin curtain, right? Jab apa parka mit gaya, and you remove the curtain, jat dekha, and then wherever I look, first it was like, oh, this is another person, this is another identity. I see this is another ego, this is a Daksali, this is a Nahangu. You know, you get the idea. This is a Kala Gura. This is just a different person in general. But when you say Jab Appa Parka Mit Gaya, when that curtain is gone, then wherever you look, you don't see anything but Akal Purkh. All I see is you. I've become you. And there's Pankti and Gurbani, which they talk about, where the entire world is made out of gold, right? And if everything is made out of gold, the only things that you see is somebody has taken the gold and they've melted it, and this blacksmith, he's made it into ornaments. Somebody's made a bracelet, somebody's made a gada, somebody made a necklace, somebody made a ring, somebody made a crown. And when you identify, if I put a bunch of things here, you say, oh, that's a crown. Or you say, no, that's a gada, or that's a bracelet, that's a ring. But really, if you were to take that all down and you were to melt it again, what would it actually be? It's just gold, right? So Maharaj is saying the entire world is all just one thing. made into different ornaments, different shapes, which we identify with ourselves with, and to identify different things, but really it's all just gold. So one small example before we actually get into the talk of Guru Angad Dev Ji itself is ego. Imagine yourself, I want to do this kind of like a talk with you guys. So imagine yourself, you're sitting in a house, right? You're sitting in a house, but you haven't built the house yet, right? So you're about to build this house. And first you have to start at the very bottom. You have to put the foundation bricks, correct? So the very foundation, you put these bricks. But the thing that makes up the foundation, there are things that make the foundation of you. So what are things that do not change about you, that will not change? Once you're born, it is who you are. So give me an example. Like, what are things that don't change about you? Yeah, so your skin color, what ethnicity you're born into, you can't change it. Once you're born, right? Or, well, nowadays you can do whatever, but you're born a girl or you're born a guy, right? It's your gender, it usually stays. Who your parents are, what order, are you the oldest, or are you the youngest, right? Those types of things, those are the foundation things. If I was to ask you, who are you, what would you describe yourself as? Normally it'd just be like your name. Hi, my name's Harman. Yeah, and I do this for a living, right? But is that actually who you are, right? What are you then? If I was to ask you, right, describe yourself to me, right? And something that's a foundation, automatically be like, I see somebody, I describe, oh, who is that guy? The tall guy, the guy that wears the bana, right? The guy that wears the light blue jola this morning, yeah. So things that you physically see, these are things. But the foundation things, okay, I have brown ethnicity. I'm tall, right? That's not going to change, right? So these are the foundation bricks which make up who I am. On top of that, now you're putting on the second layer of bricks. These are things that you identify as yourself, but they're changeable. For example, what do you do for a living? What's your full-time job? What do you do? School. So you're a student, right? So you're a student. He's a student. If I go to him 15 years later, right? And I'm like, hey, what do you do for a living now? Are you still going to be a student? Right? So you're going to be a job. What do you want to be? Engineer. Okay, he wants to be an engineer, right? So I'm going to go up to him 15 years later. First, 15 years ago, he told me, I'm a student. I asked him, who are you? He's like, I'm a student. 15 years later, I go to him, hey, who are you? I'm an engineer. I work for this company. Cool? But if I go to, imagine somebody's a doctor, right? Somebody's something else. And I go to them, even after they're a doctor, and I go to them 15 years later, but beyond that, and I go, are you still a doctor? They're going to be like, no, I'm not a doctor anymore. I'm a surgeon now, right? I moved up, I changed. Because those things change, but you still identify who you are based on those things. These small things, they build up who you are and what your ego is. Make sense? Ego, there's a difference, this is one thing we have to get clear, there's a difference between Angad and Harman. Right? We usually use those interchangeably, but there's a big difference. Angad is what Bhai Sahib was saying, pride, right? Saying that I'm better than somebody else, and that is something within the world. We want to abolish the Angad and become the lowest of the low, right? So Angad is saying you're higher than somebody else, putting somebody else down. Harman, or however, just like Bhai Sahib mentioned, it means I and me, right? So all it is you not seeing that jab appa parka mit gaya, you not seeing that you and this other person is actually God. You saying that there is no God. You going out that it's just me and you. That it's just me. I'm the one that's thinking, and I'm the one that's walking around. I'm the one that wakes up. It's very, very difficult. It goes into a lot of detail. And that's why it's like Harman Diragoge. It's the very disease, it's the root of all diseases. And if you are able to eradicate that, then there is nothing left but a galbur. So this is the very last stage of the Harman, right? But, so the second foundation is things that change. And then on top of that, these are things that they change all the time. For example, my brother, he calls me brother. He calls me by my name, right? My mom, she might call me Put, right? My dad might call me, my sister might call me something else. My friend might call me something else. Or my worker, they might call me something. My boss might call me something else. Right? For example, what does your mom call you? Right? What does your mom call you? Huh? Princess. Okay, yeah, see, but whatever it is. But what does your best friend call you? The person beside you. She calls you, somebody might call you yo, might call you bro, right? But you know they're talking to you. You get the idea? That makes up who you are. That's how they contact you. They're like, oh, this guy's my buddy. So you can call me, for example, you can call me Harman, right? Or you can call me Baji, or you can call me Virji, you can call me, anything, but that doesn't change who I am. These are things that change on top of me. So if this is the things that we identify, and you're sitting inside of this thing you call your house, and so everything that we just listed, if I was to ask you who you are, everything, you would list one of these bricks. You would list something that has a brick that builds this house of yours. You wouldn't actually be telling me who you are. You'd be like, okay, this is one of my bricks, this is who I am. But really, that's not who you are. You're sitting inside of the house itself. Right? So imagine if you want to become a doctor that has 3 cars. So you're just building more bricks. You're building a garage with 3 cars on the side. That's all you're doing. But really, you aren't the house. Here's the difference. If somebody throws a rock and they throw it at your house, and it hits the outside of the wall, but if you identify yourself as that brick and it hits your brick, that means your ego got hurt. Right? And then you'd be like, oh, I'm off by you right now. Right? It's because you can't handle the hit on your ego. But if you realize that isn't actually even me, you're sitting in your house and like, oh, I'm all safe and sound. Nothing can affect this inner peace that's happening on the inside. So really, you aren't this house of yours. You're actually something that lives inside the house. This is where Mara says, Man tum jod swarup hai, apna mool pachan. Recognize that you are not your actual body. You are not this physical thing that you see. You are something that's living inside of this. You're the actual form of Akal Purkh itself. And so just if we look at Guru Angad Dev Ji's life, okay, so we're talking about giving our head, giving all this stuff to Maharaj. It's all great and all, but then if we look at Guru Angad Dev Ji's actual life itself, how did they teach us Sikhi? How did they live this, right? For example, if we were to start just at the start of Guru Angad Dev Ji's life, right? If we were to start at the very start, who were they? Right? Guru Angad Dev Ji, they were basically a tradesman. They were a businessman. They were a trader. Right? They were a merchant. And they were very wealthy. Their name was Bhai, like you all know. Bhai, when his father passed away, he became the jathedar of their group. Right? So they were a group that worshipped Durga Mata. Cool? So they worshipped Durga Mata. He would take all the Sangata. One time, he was headed to the mountains, right? And Jwali Mukhi, that's what it's called. So he was headed there, and he took all the Sangatan there, but once he got there, they spent all night singing the praises of Durga Mata. So they're singing, they do like how we're going to do like a extended Kirtan tonight or Ransbai. They basically did all-nighter Kirtan for Durga Mata. But after it was over, the Sangatan, they kept singing, but there was a shine on Bhai Singh. He was actually into it, and he was loving it. He was Anandavitasiga. But as soon as he came out and he started walking back to his place where he was staying in the mountains there, and he heard somebody singing some music, somebody singing some words, singing some shabad. And literally did he know that these were the words of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, that a Sikh named Jodh Singh was singing just in the house that he was staying, the neighbors. So he was inside and he was singing. This is the power of singing Gurbani with love. Because I can say something, but it's not going to affect you that much. You might even not remember actually the exact words I say. But if in a Kirtan program, or if you have an experience with somebody, you remember how they made you feel. And that's what Gurbani does. It doesn't just scrape over the top. It hits you right, just like an arrow, straight into the heart. And it pierces you, and it can kill you like that. It can kill your ego. Right? So here, he's listening, and there's Jodh Singh. He's saying, Jit Sevyas. He's singing Panktiyan for Asa Diwar. And while he's singing them, Bhai Larna Ji is walking by. And as he's walking by, he's like, what is this beautiful music that he's singing? So then he goes and sits inside, and he sits in front of Jodh Singh. While sitting there, he sits in front of Jodh Singh, and he starts listening to him. Jodh Singh, or Jodh Ji, he's fully immersed. He sits there for about 3 or 4 minutes after Jodh Ji opens their eyes, and he asks, whose words are you saying? Like you're serving the true Guru, but who is this true Guru that you actually talk about? He was immersed, and as soon as he's like, I'm singing the words of Guru Nanak. As soon as he heard the words Guru Nanak, he went into Samadhi. He's like, just the word Nanak hit him in the heart so hard that he went into Samadhi mode. After he came out of that, after a couple of minutes, he asked, where is this Nanak? Where do I meet him? And Jodh Ji, immersed in love, he said, Nanak is here, Nanak is there, Nanak is everywhere. Right? Nanak is everywhere, but Bhai Larnaji's like, how do I meet him then? It's like, they're in their physical form, they're in Kartarpur right now. So he fell in love, and his mind was always, I'm cutting a long story short, right? There's a lot of detail that we can go into, but just to get to the point, Maharaj, in the roop of Bhai Larna, they come back from Khadur side. And one time, this is another way I'm talking about how they're meeting up with Guru Nanak Dev Ji in the first place. When they went back to their store and they continued their work, they had many different stores, they had many shops. One of their shops was an atta shop. Right? They had a store that they sold atta. So one day, a Guru ka Sikh walks in and he wants to buy atta. When he's buying the atta, Bhai Larna Ji notices that person's very poor. His clothes are ripped and he's barely counting change and he's about to give it to him. But once he hands it to him, when the Singh looked back, he didn't know it was a Guru the Sikh at this time. When he looked away, Bhai Larna Ji grabbed an extra full hands of atta and put it in his place while he was looking so he would get extra atta. But as soon as he turned around, he saw that there was extra atta in his place. He's like, this isn't how much I bought. He's like, give me only the amount that I want. Bhai Larna Ji says, no, it's okay, I want to give it to you. This is my gift to you just because I want to help you out. But Bhai Larna, the Gursikh, he says, no, this isn't the way that my Guru taught me. So then he's like, who is this Guru that taught you all this? Who is this Guru that gave you? And he said again, Guru Nanak. And at this point, Bhai Larna Ji was completely in shock and he's like longing for the darshan of Guru Nanak. While longing for the darshan of Guru Nanak, he wants to meet Guru Nanak. He's like, where can I meet him? How can I head to him? So he tells him to head to Kartarpur Sahib. Another time, when they're in the Sangat of their Durga Mata Sangat, he was the Jathedar, he was the leader, so he'd be like the Pradhan or the Granthi, head Granthi, that would take them around. So they were headed to the mountains again that year to do the worship again. But while he was headed that way, his heart was not wanting to go there. His heart was actually wanting to go to Guru Nanak. And this is where the beauty lies. If we take one step towards Guru Nanak, Maharaj will take millions of steps towards us. Maharaj Bhai Gurdas Ji says, Har charan sharan gur ek penda chahe jal. If you take one step towards the Guru, Guru will take millions towards you. Right now, he won't even double it. He won't take 2, not 3. He'll take millions even if you take one step. And there, he wants to go to him. But he's forced to go to Durga Mata. But he says, it's on the way. So on the way, we're going to travel to Kartarpur, meet Guru Nanak, and then we'll head out. And the Sangatan agree. So as they're walking, and as he's coming to Kartarpur side, he's on his horse. And he's coming, and he just starts walking towards the direction. But when he gets into Kartarpur, this is where the beauty lies. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is sitting in their Dharamsala in Kartarpur side. And at this age, at this time, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is 60 years old. 60 years old, they've done their Udasiyan, they've traveled the world, and they've come back. And this is where Bhai Gurdas Ji also talks about that they've taken off their kapade. We say Maharaj used to wear these yogis types of kapade, they used to do these types of things, but when it came time to actually live in Kartarpur, they say that they used to, the last 13 years of their life, they were normal kapade. So the sadharan kapade, so it'd be a normal kurta pajama or whatever it was at that time. So for us, it'd be like jeans, it'd be normal work clothes, whatever it is, the normal clothes. When they went out to do parchar, they wore the full bana. They wore the orangish type of clothes that when they needed to when they went to Hardwar. They wore the blue clothes when they went to Makkah, right? They wore the yogis clothes when they went into the mountains to talk to the Siddhs. But in the last 13 years of their life, they wore sadharan kapade and live a householder's life. So you wouldn't be able to recognize who the Baba of the town is, who the Guru of the town is. Here, Bhai Larna Ji walks in on his horse. Remember, this guy's rich. He's wearing rich clothes, shiny clothes. He's on a big, beautiful white horse, and he walks in. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji, still sitting in the Dharamsala, he gets up. And Mata Sulakhani Ji, they're like, why Guru Sahib, why'd you get up? Achanak, he just got up from his chair. And there, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that the strings of love have been pulled. The strings of love have been struck, and the person who's going to take over, he's on his way here right now. And Mata Sulakhani is like, I don't know what you're talking about, man, you're crazy. Right? This was the thing that even their sons, this is the concept that we're going to be talking about, that everyone, they called him Aputana, they called him Betala. They're like, oh, he's Bajorg, he's traveled the world now. He's tired, he's retired now. Just let him do whatever crazy stuff he does. And even his sons, they were wanting to take over, but they're like, until this guy goes away, we can't do much, right? But this guy's crazy. So as he walks in, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he walks out in town, and as the streets were narrowing, as the galiyan got smaller after he got into the city, and he's like, I don't know which direction Guru Nanak Dev Ji's house or Dharamsala is. As he's walking there, Guru Nanak Dev Ji shows up in front of his horse. Guru Nanak Dev Ji grabs the horse, and he says, where do you want to go? He's like, I want to meet Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji takes him. He's like, I'll take you there. He grabs him by his horse, and he's walking, takes him to his house. He ties up his horse, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji is like, Guru Nanak Dev Ji will be inside in just a second, right? Just go ahead inside in a couple of minutes. He goes through the back, goes back and sits on the Manji Sahib. He sits on the Manji Sahib, and Bhai Lerna Ji walks in. As soon as they walk in, Bhai Lerna Ji, remember, this guy, he had a longing for Guru Sahib. He had a desire. As soon as he walked in, his mind was at the feet of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He did not look up yet. He went down and he straight fell on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's charan. Fell on Guru Nanak Dev Ji's charan, and he explains that he's never felt such an anand. He's like, I came here, and I came here because I thank that person who's that humble, such a vibrant person that I felt so connected to outside, but now I feel even more connected as soon as I touch his feet. As he looks up, he sees that same person. Right? Sees that same person, gets up. Whoa. What just happened here? You're Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But I couldn't even tell. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji here, they smile. Guru Nanak Dev Ji smiles and says, what are you doing here? And he's like, please forgive me because I've made such a mistake. Why'd you put such a weight on top of my head? Why'd you put such a weight on top of my head now? Because you're the Guru, you're the one that was walking on the ground while I was sitting on the horse. I was sitting on the horse, you were walking on the ground, you carried me here, and you tied up the horse. How can I take that back? And here, Guru Nanak Dev Ji smiles at him and he says, Tera na ki hai? And Bhai Lerna Ji says, Lerna. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Tu Lerna, tu mere to kuch lerna ya, main tenu kuch dena ya. He says, Tu lerna ya, main tenu dena ya. Jehde leਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਘੋੜਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. The people who come to take stuff, talking about a groom here, who comes to take the bride home, they come on a horse. And he's like, just like the father who's humbled, he always stands on the ground and gives his daughter away in happiness. He's like, Tu lerna ya, main tenu kuch dena ya. But here Bhai Lerna did not understand what he's talking about. But Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he's like, he not only just gave him everything, he gave him himself too. He gave up himself to Bhai Lerna Ji as well. We usually think of it the other way, but here in this situation, Guru Nanak Dev Ji themselves saying, I'm going to give everything up to you. This aage mar challi hai. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that to Bhai Lerna, who is not the Guru yet. As these things continue, he wanted to stay. He talked to the Sangatan there. After talking to the Sangatan, he walked out, and the Sangata said, hurry up, we got to go to the Durga Mata place, yo. We got to head over there and do our puja and stuff. But Bhai Lerna says, no, I'm done with that kind of stuff. I'm going to stay here. What happened, some of the Sangata that were following Bhai Lerna, they stayed with them. Majority of them left. And after staying 3 or 4 days at Kartarpur, he headed back to Khadur Sahib. When he got back to Khadur Sahib, his mind did not click. His mind did not want to do anything. So he decided, after talking to his wife, who was Mata Kiviji at the time, right? The famous figure will be, that comes in later in history. But here, Guru Bhai Lerna Ji, he's talking to his wife and he says, here's the deal. I'm going to go and I'm just going to live with the Guru. I have all this money, I have all this stuff, but I want to give it up all. I want to give everything up and I want to just give it to the Guru. Once I give it to the Guru, I want to just live with him. I want to give up Khadur Sahib, give up my business, give up everything. Mata Kivi says she hasn't met Guru Nanak Dev Ji and she doesn't know much about other than what Bhai Lerna Ji tells her about him. So Mata Kivi Ji says that, you're going to live with these sadhus. They don't know what real life is about. They let go of their families and they go all holy and stuff, and I don't want you to become like that. Why can't you just live here? If you want to be truthful like you talk about, you can live within your family, and you can do that here. You can live with me here. And the Surah by Lerna ji says, you don't know what Guru Nanak Dev Ji I'm talking about. This person is not like any other yogis that you talk about. Guru Nanak Dev Ji himself, he's married. He has 2 sons himself. It's like, and then here Mata Kivi ji gets santusht, and she's happy with sending Lerna ji away. When by Lerna ji, he's coming, and on his way to come here, he gives up everything. He takes his business, puts it to the side, gives up everything, and he only brings 2 things. While he doesn't even bring his horse. As he's walking on this path, a lot of people says, oh, this is the Jathedar, we should give him a ride. But he's like, no, I'm not going to walk on my horse. I'm only going to walk on this on my feet, and I'm going to go as a slave. So he took 2 things with him there. 2 things he took. One, you might find this funny, but there's a logical reason behind it. He grabs a bunch of salt, puts it in a kapda, and puts it on his head. And he's like, this is my luggage. You know how we pack kapde, and we pack suitcases, and we're like, gotta check in extra bags. Bhai Darnaji says no. A bunch of salt, and puts it in a bund, ties it up, and puts it on his head. The second thing he brings is just a mat. Just a mat that's rolled up, a carpet, and brings that. 2 things, that's all he brings, but his clothes were still the rich clothes that he had before. But he just wore whatever he had. So while he was walking and he came to Kartarpur Sahib, and once he got to Kartarpur Sahib, walked into the Dharamsala, he couldn't find Guru Nanak Dev Ji anywhere. He met Mata Sulakhani Ji. Mata Sulakhani Ji took both the things. She's like, I'll give this to Guru Nanak Dev Ji after, but you might want to go meet Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He's like, where is he? She said, he's out in the farms. He's out in the farms and he's doing his daily farming. Here, Bhai Lerna ji is like, I've never done farming. He was born in a rich family. He's done business his entire life. He's never known anything about farming. He didn't even know, he's never been to a farm himself. So this guy rushes straight to the field of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and he sees Guru Nanak Dev Ji picking weeds, pulling weeds out from around rice plants. As he's pulling weeds out from around the rice plants, Bhai Lerna ji looks at him and starts trying to imitate what he's doing. But here's the difference. This is his pola barn. This is the pola. This is the innocence. This is the humility that he walked in with. While he's walking with this humility, he doesn't know the difference between a rice plant and a weed. So what he starts doing, he chops everything off. He chops all the rice plants, he chops all the weeds together and just chucks it on the side. He's like, Guru Sahib, am I doing good? But Guru Sahib just laughs. But this is the beauty of his innocence. Because he's there because of his intention. He's not looking at the physical thing. He's looking at giving his mind to the Guru. Giving his head, just aage mar chaliye. Right? We're going to keep coming to that same concept. But here, while he's doing that, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, "Eh, tera kam nahi hega. Tu ithe pattan nahi aaya." So you're not here to pull things out. You're here to plant things. But Bhai Lerna ji did not understand what he meant there. But really, Guru Nanak Dev Ji meant that you're going to be coming, you're going to plant the Bhai Manji Sahibs, you're going to plant the Gurmukhi alphabet, and you're going to be planting the seed of Sikhi in people across the world. Not pulling people out. That's why he said, "Eh tera kam nahi hega." So while they're discussing there, he tells him why he brought the salt and why he brought the mat. Guru Nanak Dev Ji already knew, but Mata Sulakhani didn't know. Mata Sulakhani didn't know why he brought those certain things. So when they went back to the house and he started doing seva, this is where the tests of Bhai Lerna ji began. The tests, there are 10 main tests, but I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them. But through all these tests, you have to look at the beauty and at each concept of how Guru Angad Dev Ji went originally from somebody that worshipped somebody a complete opposite of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and then coming back and becoming the Roop and becoming Guru Nanak Dev Ji himself. So, a couple of things. So what happened was, he took all those weeds, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji grabbed all these weeds and put them, wrap them up, and they were all in the mud. Put them on your head and go dangaranu bali. Go give it to the animals. So when he picked it up, he put it on top of his head and he started walking towards the animals. Once he gave it to the animals, they met up back at the Dharamsala. Here Mata Kiwi ji, she goes to, or not Mata Kiwi, Mata Sulakhani ji. She says, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, why do you keep doing this to people? He's such nice clothes on. Parona ayas, he came as a guest to do seva. And you're making him do all this crazy stuff. Look at you made all his clothes dirty. And here Guru Nanak Dev Ji, this is the thing that we have to notice, that everything Maharaj says, there's a deep meaning behind it. Guru Sahib never speaks for no reason. Anything they say has a deep meaning. Any word that comes out of the Guru's mouth. Here they say that this mud that you see, to you it looks like mud. I don't see any mud. I see a body that's drenched in love and it's drenched in saffron. Saffron is the color that comes out of flowers. It's the flavor. He's like, I see the color of love. He's drenched in the color of love. And this person, he's going to be the one that's going to be sitting on the throne after. But Mata Kiwi is like, I don't know what you're saying. You're crazy. Here's the beauty of it. Why did he bring the salt? Why did he bring the mat? Mata Kiviji didn't understand this. But the reason why he brought the whole pond of salt is because there's a story that it's called the salt cube story. The salt cube story is there's a couple of salts that were on the beach and they were beside the ocean. Salt comes out of the ocean. But they were there and they started talking to each other and they said, I wonder how deep the ocean is. So one starts talking to the other one. He's like, I'll find out for you guys. I'll just go in, I'll jump in, and I'll find out how deep it is, and I'll come out and I'll tell you guys. So they made a deal. Okay, you go in and you find out, and we'll wait here for your response. So once he jumps in, once he dives into the ocean, he goes into the ocean and he dissolves into the ocean. The deeper and deeper he goes, the thinner and thinner that cube becomes until he becomes the ocean himself. And this is the thing that Bhai Lernaji is saying, that I'm not here to taste like sugar. Maharaj says that if you want to walk on this path, first of all, it's going to taste like you're licking a sand rock, like you're licking limestone. That's what it's going to taste like, and there's not going to be any sugar involved. It's kanyo niki walon tikhi. It's like walking on a tightrope. It's very easy to fall off, and this is not something, you don't come here for the love, the games, and the fun. But here, Bhai Lernaji is like, just coming, he's like, I'm not here for that sugar. I'm here for that salt, and the salt is to dissolve in you and become you. And the reason he brought the mat, saying that I'm not here to sleep on big beds. I'm not here for the luxuries. I've given my luxuries away. I'm going to sleep on this mat that I brought. That was all the luggage he brought. His clothes, because I don't want to identify myself, he left them all back, and he brought the salt because I could dissolve, I can become you as well. The mat, I'm not here for the luxuries, leaving all that back and becoming the form of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So here, I want to kind of change it up, because I've been talking, he's kind of like, man, when's this guy's going to stop? But basically, I want you to break off in a group, and I want you guys to talk about what do you think that environment was like when Bhai Lernaji came into Kartarpur and met Guru Nanak Dev Ji. What is the situation like right now? What are people thinking? What is he thinking? What are these tests going to be like? I want you to spend at least just 5-10 minutes in your groups, people beside you, discuss this, and I want to hear from you after. So we can discuss this with furthering this story of how it comes to the Sagya Marchaliya. The question was like, what was that situation like when Bhai Lernaji came to meet Guru Nanak Dev Ji? And what do all these things mean? What is it going to mean? What do you think the environment was
Yeah,
Alright, we'll bring it in now. Guru. Alright, so what did you discuss in your group? What do you think that time was like? What do you think the people around that time were saying? What do you think it was like? Any talks, any suggestions? What do you think? What do you think that time was like? It was just like you walked in, everyone was just like, oh, this guy's gonna, oh yeah, he's gonna be the next guru, we accept him right away. What do you think it was like at that time? Yep. How, what do you mean by that?
I mean, I don't know how to go for like, because Guru Nanak Dev Ji, how the first time they meet, Guru Nanak Dev Ji takes the reins of the horse and guides Bhai Lana to where they were, and then Bhai Lana realizes, oh, this is actually Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And then afterwards, how Bhai Lana Ji, with the Nirvata, they show up again and they go do exactly how Guru Nanak Dev Ji was, whatever they were doing.
Yeah. Okay. But what's the environment like? You just said the story I just said.
I mean, it's probably just afterwards, that's all I can say.
Oh, okay. Yeah, anything else?
Harsh times.
How so?
Like, it was, cause like, when Guru Hari Gobind Sahib came, war started and, it was a bad time for Khalsa, but we still rose up.
Yeah. I think you went an extra 200 years in the future. Yeah.
You know when you've been away from home for a while and you like fly into an airport,
Yeah.
and you're like going to the terminal and you know your family's waiting at the other end, and everyone like customs, they're asking for your passport and you're like really happy and giddy and you're like, yeah, no problem. Everyone's going about their normal life. Customs, they have the same drop dead face, but you're happy. And I feel like that was the environment of Bhai Lana. He felt like he was going home, and he didn't care about what was going on around him, and the people around him were just doing their everyday life. So nothing was changing on a worldly level, but in his life, and in Guru Nanak's life, Guru Nanak Dev Ji was going to receive him at the airport. Bhai Lana Ji was just landing, and he was like, I cannot wait to see my family. And I feel like that was kind of the environment for them too, and for everyone else, it was just everyday life, and they were like, why is he in such a rush? Why is he so giddy? And why isn't he on his horse?
Andy?
So Kartarpur was made after Guru Nanak Dev Ji's last year, right?
Yeah.
So Guru Nanak Dev Ji has.
Well, it was made before he went on his Udasi and came back to settle in
So
Qatar.
there's other Sikhs in
Sorry?
Kartarpur,
Yeah.
right? And I think Bhai Lana is going to see them, right? And then the question leads into how are the tests eventually made, right? Guru Sahib has 6, but they're not all Bhai Lana. And
That's good. That's kind of that's one of the things. So when Bhai Lana Ji came in there, the first things he's heard, as soon as he just outside of the city, he heard Kirtan. And as he heard Kirtan, his horse automatically knew the way and started walking towards the direction. While he's walking towards the direction, he walks in and he feels like this is where it should be. He describes it in the very first Janam Sakhi that's written, that our history has, the very original Janam Sakhi, the most Puratan Likh that we have of history, in that it's Guru Angad Dev Ji describing that area and what Guru Nanak Dev Ji and these tests that were both happening. He describes how everything was there. He felt like he walked into Sachkhand. He walked into Sachkhand, but this is the viewpoint of Bhai Lana. You have to notice that this isn't the viewpoint of the Sikhs that were there. Right? So even though one person viewed it as Sachkhand, one person viewed it as extreme, like this is Anand and this is where I'm going to give in everything, this Agya Marchaliya, like give up everything, there's absolutely no me left, leave my clothes back and everything, but these people that were already living there, they weren't able to recognize this. They weren't able to recognize this beauty because they were so accustomed to it. They weren't able to recognize or appreciate the value of what was actually there. So, going into the test, the very first test that Bhai Lana Ji is this is going to show you the other side of what the people thought. What did the people actually think of Guru Nanak Dev Ji that were living with Guru Nanak Dev Ji? What did their two sons think of him? So here, the very first test is when they were in the Ravi River. Guru Nanak Dev Ji goes into the Ravi River, and there he's doing Ashnan. Baba Buddha Ji is there. There's many other Sikhs there, and Bhai Lerna Ji is there as well. During this test, but nobody knew it was a test. Keep that in mind. Guru Nanak Dev Ji went into the river. They're doing their Ashnan. Everybody's standing there, and it starts hailing. Starts hailing. The hail and the rain is hitting people, everybody in the head, and everybody starts running to trees. They run inside. Everyone's gone. And then Bhai Lerna Ji is just standing there. He's looking at the river. Guru Nanak Dev Ji walks out, and it's raining. It's still hailing. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is like, why didn't you go like everybody else? Everybody else left. Everybody else left me. They knew I was in the river, but why didn't you go? Tu ka to nahi gaya? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, it's hailing. He's like, oh, I didn't even notice. Right? He's like, he didn't even notice that what was happening around him. He saw people running, but he didn't know. He's like, his focus, his everything was focused on one point. Mara says, the sir dijai kaan na kijai. And this goes perfectly with this, because a lot of times we want to give our head to the Guru. We want to do something that Maharaj is telling us to do, but what are people going to say? What are people going to think? Even though we know that this is wrong, but still, why does it affect us? Maybe it could be about facial hair. It could be about the dara. It could be about the dastar. It could be like, oh, I don't know, what are people going to think of when I go matha take and I'm wearing like a chola? What are people going to think of me? It could be anything, the smallest things, but those are physical things. And Bhai Lerna Ji didn't even notice the entire storm going around him. And this is proof where Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that you are so solid, just like the kamalda full that's living on top of the pond and living in mud. You're on top of that. You don't even notice the mud is there because it can't even stain you. It can't even affect you one little bit. That was the very first test. The second test is when that same night, the rain and the hail is still happening. They go and they're sleeping at Guru Nanak Dev Ji's house. One of the walls of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's house, it just falls down because of the rain. It tears away and it's broken down. There Guru Nanak Dev Ji's like, alright, let's start building this wall up again. Their two sons, Siri Chand and Lakshmi Das, both of them, they said, we have a person that can build them. We have people. We'll tell them in the morning. We'll start building up. It's like we're the Guru's sons. We're supposed to talk about we're supposed to do all this kind of stuff. We're supposed to be doing the delegating. We're supposed to be dealing with business side stuff. But our job is to build walls. We'll get somebody else to do it. But as soon as he looked to Bhai Lerna, he didn't even have to say anything. Bhai Lerna, remember, this guy still, look at the innocence. He's never touched a brick before. This guy's a merchant. He deals with business. He deals with money. But he goes and he starts building this wall. As soon as he builds it, it's built crooked. It's completely dead down. There's holes in it. It's not proper. There's cement. There's rain still pouring into it. And Guru Nanak Dev just laughing. But he looks at the beauty and looks at the essence of it. And this is what we have to look at. If we want to follow Sikhi, we're not going to get it perfect in the first time. You're not going to read Hukamnama. You're not going to get it fully perfect. You do Kirtan. You might go off beat. That's fine. Read your Nityanim. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah, but walking on this path of Sikhi, if it's so thin, you're bound to fall off. But what you have to do is get back on. And Maharaj will give your hand. And he will take you through it, right? But if you have the faith like Bhai Lerna Ji did. Bhai Lerna Ji was the embodiment of faith, basically. When they built this, Guru Nanak Dev Ji left. He's like, "Eta de, he baniya." He tore it down and he said, "Build it again." He builds it again. Again, it's crooked and like usual. He builds it and tears it down 4 times like that. 4 times. But then this is where Shri Chand comes in. Shri Chand says, like, "Why are you listening to this guy?" So I'm like, "Why are you listening to my pops?" Right? He's old now. He's retired. He makes everybody do this crazy stuff these days. Just whatever, carry on. This is where the thing comes in, because Bhai Lerna Ji was not looking at whether the wall is going to get done or not. Sometimes when we look at Guru Maharaj's hukam, we start bringing in our own soji. We start thinking that Maharaj said this, but it makes more sense to do this, or should I do this or not? It doesn't even make sense. But here the thing is, Bhai Lerna Ji was not looking at the result of the thing. His only objective, his only thing was about what the Guru said. It was the Guru's hukam. And because of that, he's going to build it, he's going to tear it down. And according to what the Guru said. But basically, it's because our siyana, we think, oh no, I think this is better, according to our own mind. And sometimes we don't know what's better. But if we actually want to give sir dija, this you actually want to completely die, that means you have to give up your head. With dying comes your consciousness as well. That's completely giving your head to Mara. And this is the embodiment of faith that Mara is just talking about. And so, one of the things that happens here is Mata Sulakhani ji, she starts seeing that he's favoring her, favoring Baidarna. He's not favoring their sons. And she's kind of like apprehensive. She talks to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, but here still Mata Sulakhani, she didn't really. But here Guru Nanak Dev Ji knew exactly what needed to be done. So what happened? The third test is what Guru Nanak Dev Ji does. He grabs everybody, holds everyone together, and he has a coin in his hand. He has a coin in his hand, and he shows it to everybody. He's like, "Sare daso, what's in my hands?" Mere hathan de vich ki hai. And everybody goes, saying, "Maharaj, that's pretty easy." So you're holding a dollar, you're holding 1 rupiah. It's pretty clear. Everybody says the same thing. You're holding money, you're holding something. Baba Buddha ji, the sons, the mother, everybody, all the Sikhs in the entire city, they said this. Then they looked at Bhai Lerna, and they said, "Tu Bhai Lerna," they used to call him Lerna. Or though they used to call him Burkha, right? And they said, "What's in my hand?" Mere hath de vich ki hai. And here, by Lerna ji, he says that the world is in your hands. You make whatever, you control everything. How am I supposed to? My worth is, my buddhi is not there to know what's actually in your hands. Looking at the outside picture, looking at who Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually is, rather than somebody just calling, the old guy that's kind of retired now. So if you look at this, and here Guru Nanak Dev Ji looks at Mata Sulakhani, he's like, "Vekhya ki fark hai?" And here Mata Sulakhani starts having to accept it. And again, the fourth challenge, there are many challenges that they go through. We're going to cover a couple of them. The fourth one is actually during a time of drought, when there was no rain, during a time of drought, the Sangat hadn't eaten for 3-4 days. 3-4 days, no food was given, the Sangat are starving. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, "Okay, we need to go find food for these people. We need to go find food." So they go, and as they're walking, there's a tree. And on this tree, you may have heard the story, but we have to look at what the essence of the story is. There, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he says, tells Shri Chand, "Go shake that tree. Shake that tree because there's fruit on it and it'll fall down. And then we can all eat." But here Shri Chand says, "Are you crazy? It's not even the season, it's winter time. That fruit blossoms and it gives fruit in the summertime. It's Bodamina. It doesn't even give any fruit. Right? There's nothing on it. It's a dead tree." But here, he says, "I'm not going to do it." But then he tells everybody, nobody says, they give the same reason. And here by Lerna, as soon as before they're even going to look, he starts walking towards it. But here's the other beautiful thing about it. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they always used to say, when they would tell him to do something, but they'd also be like, so it's like I tell him, "Go shake that tree." He starts walking towards it. He tells Bhai Lerna, "Tu kite chalya? What are you doing? Tu ki kan chalna?" And obviously, for example, if somebody told me to go pick up that marker and put it over there, and then you told me to go do it, I start doing it, and then you tell me, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you start yelling at me. I'd be like, "What do you mean? Tu hi dasya mainu? You're the one that told me to pick up the marker and put it. Don't yell at me." But here by Lerna ji, this is my Guru Nanak Dev Ji, tu ki kan laga? Where are you headed? And by Lerna ji is like, "Forgive me, I made a mistake. I don't know where I'm going. Mainu pata nahi main kithe chalna, you lead me in the right direction." Every single moment. We talk about this, it's a great story, but to bring it into our life, and every moment, that is a difficult thing. Every moment, somebody tells me to go do the dishes, and somebody says, "I'm like, "Gone mani karna." Right? That hukum, small things, right? We fight with our mothers about this all the time, right? The small things. But after he goes, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says to go and shake the tree. He shakes the tree, fruit falls out, and on the entire Sangat, they ate after those 3 days. And another one, I'm just going to go quickly. I just wrote down a couple of the things about the tests. The fifth one is when Guru Nanak Dev Ji, there's Sawa Pehr left in the night. So that's about 4 hours left until the sun was going to rise. The sun still had to rise, so it's about early in the morning, right? Let's say it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. The sun comes up later at 6 o'clock. But here, Guru Nanak Dev Ji gets up and he calls everyone into his room. The sons, Bhai Lerna, Baba Buddha Ji, everyone. Calls everyone into the room and they're all sitting in the room. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is like, everyone wash my clothes. And the sons are like, we have a tobi to do that. We have a washer. Why do we want to wash it? We're the Guru's sons. We gotta do all this other stuff. And we'll do it during the day. And Hun Saman Baba Buddha Ji, they say, and the sons say, Hun Samani hega ton bada. It's like, it's not the morning yet. And Hun Samani hega. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is like, Acha, Hun Samani hega. Do you know what time it is? It's like, tu 10 minute hun sama ki hoye. Go look outside and tell me. Everyone goes outside, it's still dark. They come inside. And they said, what time is it? Guru Nanak Dev Ji asked. Everyone says, it's about 4 hours left until the sun is going to rise. And there's about, 7 hours of the night have passed. And there's about 4 hours left. But after looking at all of their answers, Guru Nanak Dev Ji not satisfied. Again, look at Bhai Lerna. Bhai Lerna is like, Lerna tu das kinna sama rinda. And here, crying with tears in their eyes, they say that however much you wanted to pass the night, that much has passed, and however much you want to bring more, whenever you want to bring the sun up, that's when the sun will come up. That's their humble answer, always looking beyond the norm. Always. These are the tests that they had to go through. And here, they achieve Sikhi with 3 babbe. 3 babbe are, first is Pul, the second one is Pana, and the second one is Pala, and the third one is Pana. The 3 babbe. Always accepting their Pul, always saying it's mere to Pul hoiya, accepting the Pala, that whatever the Guru does, that is the best, and accepting the Pana. In whatever situation is, Maharaj does the best, and it is the sweet will of Maharaj. So, these are the things. I'm just going to cut to one last one. This is where, there's a few more, but one where Guru Nanak Dev Ji, there's many different versions of this story as well, but Guru Nanak Dev Ji, one day, they walk into the darbar with ripped clothes completely. Guru Nanak Dev Ji completely ripped clothes, and they walk in holding a club, a big club. And they walk in and everybody sees Maharaj coming on. They're all getting ready to Matha take. Maharaj Aya, Matha Teko, right? Darshan Dijay, all singing the morning Amrit Vela. They're all singing it. They're about to Matha take. Guru Nanak Dev Ji grabs the club, beats the Sangat. He starts beating. Somebody comes, oh, tu Matha Tekan laga, beats him. Right? Another guy starts beating the Sangat. They start yelling. There's some people even say they started swearing. But this is the show. A lot of people like, oh, they started running away. They're like, Guru's gone mad, he should have retired way long ago, he's done, right? We need a new guy now. So they started running. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, while beating him, he starts walking towards the jungle. Some Sangat did follow him to the Sangat. When they followed him to the Sangat, he looked back, he's like, why are you following me? He starts beating them as well. After beating and beating, he goes, and he beats everyone until the very end, until only Bhai Lerna was left. And Bhai Lerna still standing there taking the hits. He's like, Maharaj. And when they were in this jungle, there was a chadar. There was a dead body that needed to be cremated with a chadar on top. And here Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they tell Bhai Lerna, they're like, Acha, you want to do as I will, still in that angry face that they put on, just to teach. And he goes, go eat that dead body. Aam taur they hear by Siri Chand and Baba Buddha Ji, all these guys did come back after. They said, eat that dead body right now. I'm personally like, no, I don't want to eat. That's gross. I don't want to eat that. But here by Lerna Ji going up to the dead body, and he says, where do I start? Do I start at the bottom? Do I start at the center? Or do I start at the head? Where should I start eating this body? And as soon, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, start exactly from the center. Eat both ways out. And here, by Lerna Ji lifts the chadar. As soon as he lifts the chadar, all the Itihasakars, they've written this. Right? Gyan Singh, the Suraj Prakash, they've all written this by Veer Singh as well, that as soon as the chadar was lifted, there was Kada Prasad there. There was no actual dead body. Kada Prasad, if you look at the word Prasad itself, there's a difference. One is Parashad, right, or Parsad, which is Par, and then the one with this bad Zirara. It's only the difference of a half a letter, which is Prasad, or Prashad, right? The difference, when we get Kada Prasad, that is Parashad, when we receive that. But the blessing is the prasad, the Gur prasad that we read in Mool Mantra. But here, Bhai Lerna Ji goes, he not only grabs the parshad, he also grabs that prasad that's happening on the inside. He grabs both of these, and he grabs that blessing from Guru Nanak Dev Ji that nobody else was able to achieve. If we look at this, and if we were to put ourselves in those same situations, let alone the Guru coming to beat you, if your brother came to beat you, you would be running out of the house, right? Look at the difference. And here, if we were to go further into it, into another one of them, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, one day, while needing to take a bath, whenever they would go to take a shnan in the river, they would always have a bucket, a tokri with them, which they would pick up the water and they would put on top of themselves. While doing this, they go into the one river, beside river, and there was a nali running by. There's a nali, and it was full of gand. It was a sewer system where the low caste people and all these people, they used to, with all their feces were there of the city and everything. It was complete gand nali. It was a sewer. Guru Nanak Dev Ji takes their bucket and they chuck it across and they chuck it into that. And they tell all the Singhs, somebody go grab that. And their Shri Chand was like, why do you need that one? I'll go order another one. Don't worry. Why do you need that Pacific? He's like, no, I need that Pacific one. I want that one. Right? And Shri Chand's like, man, you're old now, man. I'll grab you a different one. Right? And here, they said, no, I want that one. Bhai Lerna Ji, before they were even able to look at them, they see them running towards the thing. They're running towards the sewer and they dive in. As soon as they dive in, they come out with this bucket. And Mata Sulakhani, she again looks at Guru Nanak and she's like, why are you making him do this? It's like, why you put this poor guy in so much trouble? It's like, what's the reason of doing this? And she said, what is he going to do? But here, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, they look at Mata Sulakhani and they said, this is what he's doing right now. This is exactly what he's going to be doing. Exactly what he's going to be doing is he went into the mud and he brought out the bucket. And he brought out, I don't see what he's going to be doing in the future. He's going to be in this world. He's going to be going into the mud, grabbing the people that need the help there, bringing them out and putting them on their head, just like he brought out that bucket and put it on top of his head. In that same way, look at the beauty of it. And he's going to be taking all this kind of stuff, but here, he becomes pure gold. He becomes that purity. And once he becomes that purity, they've taken him back to the Dharamsala after many of these tests. There's many other tests that we can talk about. But coming back to the same point of Sir Dija, Aap Gawai. You lose yourself, there's nothing of him left at this point. And as soon as they're back at the Dharamsala, Guru Nanak Dev Ji walks in and he puts his matha right on the charan of Bhai Lerna Ji. And here, they call him Angad. They say, you're not Lerna anymore. I have nothing to give you. So you're not Lerna. So there's nothing left for me to give you. This is why, because you've become a part of me. And here, his name was given Angad. Angad comes from two things. Ang meaning body part. Ad meaning the very primal, the very first. So he is the body part of the very first, which is Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which was that same light of Calgary that came onto the world. He is his body part. And he's like, at this point, he says, I cannot live without my body part either. Here, they put him on the throne, everybody starts matha taking. While everybody starts matha taking, Guru Nanak Dev Ji walks around them 3 times as well. And Guru Angad is like, this isn't what I want, this isn't what I came for, don't give me this. As they're doing this, the Sangatans start walking around and they start matha taking as well. So what Guru Angad Dev Ji, he gets up off the throne, he's like, no, this isn't what I want. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, this isn't what it is. Right? So here the Sangatans said, why shouldn't we matha take to you? The Guru himself matha take. And this is the beauty of what Guru Angad Dev Ji said at this point. If you look into the Jivan, always till the very end having that humility, he's like, Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't matha take to me. Just like if a child falls into the mud and he gets dirty playing in the snow outside, what is the father going to do? He's going to go pick up the kid and he's going to play around the kid. If the kid is cold, he's going to play around the kid, he's going to hold him, warm him up. And what Guru Nanak Dev Ji did as a father, while he was playing with me as a kid, just like a father puts him on top of his shoulders and just to make the kid happy and runs around, that's exactly what Guru Nanak Dev Ji did. He didn't matha take to me. I'm a kid that he picked up and he put me on his shoulders himself. And this is the beauty of Guru Angad Dev Ji until the very end. If we look at all these tests, look at all these sequences that we went through today, and the concept of ego that we talked about, was that wall, was that mansion that we were talking about, was it still even there? There was no difference. And we're coming back to that same line we started off with. Tum karta tum hua, mujh mein rana hu, jab apa par ka mit gaya, jat dekha tat tum. Wherever I look, there is you. And another thing is when Guru Angad Dev Ji, Rupai Lana Ji, was lifting that chadar to eat that body, he looks up and he sees the Kada Prasad. He said, Nanak tum, tusi, e tusi ya, Nanak ethe. And then he looks at Guru Nanak and he says, Nanak othe. And then Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Sare passe Nanak. Nanak ethe bhi, Nanak othe bhi, everywhere is Nanak. When he got that blessing of the Prasad, at that moment, that's exactly the moment when there was absolutely no difference. If this entire world is in fact all gold that's kind of shaped into different ornaments and turned into bracelets and wallets and different kade and different necklaces, but if you melt it down what it is again, just like we talked about at the start, it's all gold at the end anyway. And this is the thing that Guru Angad Dev Ji came to with his faith. Now here's one last thing that I want to bring up before ending it. There's Guru Angad Dev Ji, he built Preet. He built love with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But how did he build this love? How did he do it? If you look at the word Preet itself, there's a word inside of that. The answer is within that word. And within that word is the word Reet. Reet meaning a ritual. Reet meaning a thing that you do. Guru Angad Dev Ji did not look at, with his own consciousness, what is the Guru right or is it wrong? He just said, Guru says this, I'm going to do it. And through that, the Preet was built. This is why Maharaj's hukam, accepting hukam, all this comes to down. If we want this to connect this to our theme Shabad, Jis pyare su neho tis agya mar chale. If you want to build that Preet, it's through the Reet. That's how you give yourself up, through the Reet. Give yourself up to the command of Guru Maharaj, and then actually after living without this Trig Jivan Sansar tis agya pacha jivana. Living, because there is nothing left for you to see without them. How much time do we have left? Are we talking for whatever? Huh? I see like the magician is here. 15 minutes? Okay. So are there any questions? We kind of covered a lot of the Jeevani. Bhai Guru. So we covered a lot of the Jeevani about Guru Angad Dev Ji coming from where they were before and how they became the root of Guru Nanak Dev Ji themselves. And if we were to look at this, there are three main things that he covered. Three main things where everybody wants happiness. He was searching for happiness. But the main thing where he came out to the end was the very first thing, that our level of happiness is entertainment. We say we want happiness, but we look at entertainment. Laughing with our friends, giggles, watching a TV movie. That is the very fundamental. Our level of happiness, if we were to describe being happy, how are you happy? What makes you happy? It would be a list of physical things. But if we look at what Guru Maharaj, they say, what makes them happy, when they describe their happiness, they say extreme bliss. Such ecstasy that they can't even describe. An experience that cannot be told. So what is their level of happiness compared to our level of happiness? The Bhagats, the Gurus, the Saints. Because we're at the very first level. They have become the third level, which is Ananda itself. Just like we talked about in the Katha, where there is no opposite. But the intermediate, the second stage is contentment. This comes automatically with experience, where you lose your desires. Where you lose your desires and you put your faith towards it. But the only difference there is, because there's still this sense of fear. The sense of fear of death, the sense of fear of losing what you've already achieved. If you were able to get rid of your desire, achieve contentment, and then lose your fear of death, then you become the embodiment of Ananda itself. Maharaj says, Sadgur ki bani, Sad Sarup hai, Gur bani bani hai. You want to become Gurbani, you want to become that living embodiment. The only way to do that is actually to follow the hukam of exactly in the way, the Jivan of Guru Angad Dev Ji, how they describe it to us. So are there any questions before we kind of end it off? Yeah? So many of the Sangat, they did come back, right? Obviously, the Sangat isn't going to leave them. So Maharaj says that Sachi Preet Hum Tumse Jodi, right? It cannot be cut, it cannot be broken if it's true love, right? That's the love that Guru Angad did. No matter what you beat me with, my love for you cannot, because it's pure love. Other love, if it's a relationship love, if it's like with somebody, it can be cut. People go through breakups, some people go through, or they they lose their car, they're so in love with their car, or something like that. But that's physical love. That's not true love. True love with the Guru, true love with the Calgary cannot be broken. But the Sangat at that point, many did come back, and maybe many didn't. I'm not sure. Who knows? Might have to ask them. Right? They're probably not 6. Hopefully there are. But is there any other questions? Yeah.
What were the 3 pabbe? Pol, Pana, and...
So first one is Pol, Pala, and Pana. Right? Those are the 3 pabbe that Guru Angad Dev Ji based his life around. Anything else? Right, so while speaking, I've made many mistakes, and I'm just a kid as well, just like you guys, right? Aziz Bakshni, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.